head.
You get sunburn on the top of your head?
Yeah.
Did you used to get sunburn on the top of your head?
I used to have hair on top of my head. All right, we'll head up and go find them. I know where they are this time.
He's on patrol. What's the dog's name?
Peter.
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 Peter the dog.
Peter the Pyrenees.
And he has learned it's far safer to protect our chickens than it is to protect the bison. But we bought this farm for the purpose of raising cattle. Like I said, there was no fencing here. All this is all overgrown. I put miles and miles of fencing up. But I spent some time in Montana and fell in love with the bison. And told my wife one day, you know, when we get this place with some fencing, we're going to have a couple of bison. So the idea was to just have 2 or 3 bison in our backyard, and if you wanted to eat one or something, we could always shoot it, not a big deal. And so when we decided to get cattle, we couldn't find any cattle we liked, and either I said or my wife said, why only 3? So we went out and bought 3, then we bought 4, then we bought another 10, and so on.
And now how many do you have?
There's 52. Here you go. As I said earlier, bison have a rut. And bison also court their females. So if a bison is courting one, and the rut's short, you don't talk about a 2 to 3 month span when any of the females are going to come into season. And if a bull is courting one female, he will not go mate another female until he's done mating her. So really you need one bull for 15 to 20 cows. There used to be the one thing that's unique about this herd, without going into a long story of history, but all bison can be traced back to 25 to 50 animals. The low number from 60 million was down to 140 is a low number of living animals. So everything can be traced back to 5, what we call the foundation herds. 4 of them were private. One was Yellowstone, which had 23 animals. Those other 4 played with crossing bison and cattle, trying to improve the longevity of cattle. One of the big things was the big blizzard of 1880, somewhere around there in Kansas, where thousands of cattle died and not a single bison even cared. And they said, gee, we can get some of that. They eat very little during the wintertime. They go into some sort of semi-hibernation, you might say. So they're easier to keepers. So anyway, 30-50% of all bison out there are actually hybrids. Of the 14 federal herds, only 3 are known to be pure bison. The rest are mixed with cattle genes in there. So this is one of the only, every single one of these animals have been genetically tested to be 100% pure bison.
And that's important to you?
I think it's important to the species. I mean, a hybrid's a hybrid, never will be a hybrid, you know. Interesting thing is that bison are more American than we are. They crossed the Bering Strait 100,000 years ago. And they're considered exotic animals. They're not considered native wildlife. And the actual reason behind that is the U.S. government believed that bison were going to be extinct. And the only place you'd ever be able to see one would be in a zoo. And so to get around all the regulations regarding wildlife in zoos, they reclassify them as exotics. It makes no sense whatsoever nowadays, but that's your story.
Does that make caring for them, that designation, does that make caring for them more difficult or present different obstacles?
Totally different obstacles. Bison are not cattle by any means. The old saying is that a cattle rancher can make his cows do anything he wants them to do. A bison rancher can make his bison do anything they want to do. And that's how you have to deal with them. You have to convince them what you want them to do, because you will not force them. If you force them, they will likely turn and attack. Usually they give a warning. We have one who will not give you a warning, and she'll come at you. Now, she broke her horn in a fight. That one you're looking at right there? Got the broken horn, yeah.
Is that common for them to get in fights?
There is a bison have what's called a violent social structure. So just based on that, yes.
Could you describe the social structure a little more?
It's just a severely enforced pecking order. You know, it's humorous because the bison section is their mothers from the herd. And they learned very early on that there is a pecking order that's to be honored and respected. Sometimes if you go online and look at buffalo hunts, for instance, and where they shoot one buffalo and the rest of the buffalo essentially attack it. The hierarchy, it's like, why aren't you because animals really don't understand death. And it's like, why aren't you getting up? Why aren't you moving out of my way? So what's more interesting is, what and why did we kill off 60 million bison?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. And you can just hold on. Let me get you framed up here. Yeah. So what is the reason why we killed off so many bison?
American greed, simple greed. It was the bison or buffalo gold rush, you might call it. And I'm just going to give an example. In 1880, and my numbers are probably going to be a little off, and they could be reversed, but the average wage at the time was 11 cents an hour, which meant you brought home about $22 a week. At the exact same time, a bison hide was worth $4, and a bison tongue was worth 25 cents. The average hunter could kill and skin 200 bison a day. If you do the math, when everyone's making $22 a week, they're making $800 a day. So all of your famous people, Bat Matheson, Buffalo Bill, Wyatt Earp, all of them, they all made their riches killing bison. And that's how they became famous and rich. And I think it was Buffalo Bill who bragged about killing 1,000 bison in 1 week. So think about it during the time, You also had the problem of the railroads. Once we built the Transcontinental Railroad, if there was a bison herd in the way, well, you couldn't wait for a couple of million bison to cross the tracks because you're going to run out of coal or something. But you couldn't split the herd. If you end up splitting the herd, trying to get the herd would unite. That means they would run between the tracks and derail the trains. So the end result was the train companies hired hunters, sportsmen for $80 a day. Again, 22 cents, $22 a week. $80 a day to come shoot bison from the trains. And so the trains would come by and the hunters would just shoot bison, and then the skinners would be following the trains on horseback to get there, $4.25 a dead animal. And that's what it is. And you read some of the history of it. The Smithsonian spending 2 years trying to find some of the last remaining bison. And then they shoot them to mount them. And yeah, it really does not make, some of it, you read the history, it's like, does not make sense. There were a lot of voices, like our politicians even today just did meaningless things. I mean, you'd have to look it up. A lot of states outlawed bison after there were no bison in the state. Even when they established Yellowstone to protect the bison, they didn't hire any wardens, anyone to protect it. It was just, okay, you can't shoot it, but we're not going to prosecute you or even find you if you do. So there's a lot of just paperwork efforts. And like I said, it can all be traced back to 5 people, 5 herds. And they're the ones from there, the bison grew. So eventually Roosevelt and the New York Zoological Society, which is run at the time by, or this Bronx Zoo now, they played a major effort in saving the bison. or at least bring in a regulation, stop killing them.
Do you think that
Plus 60 million bison getting killed kind of floods the market and prices started dropping too. When the bison were killed, and if you come to our website, you can see old pictures of the plains where you can't even see the grasses. It's all just white bones because they just left the carcasses to rot. No one wanted the meat. It was just the hides and the tongues that were worth anything. So they estimate it takes 100 bison to make 1 ton of bone. So in a 10-year period, based on the tonnage of bone processed for fertilizer, 20 million bison were killed in a 10-year period. That's pretty amazing.
yeah, that's incredible. It's an incredibly staggering amount.
And in less than 100 years, we've brought 140 up to about 375,000 that exist, and about 25,000 or so exist in federal herds or state herds, and the rest are all in private herds. So we usually bring them down here one at a time. And this is where we start squeezing them in. And you can look here and look how thick that metal is and how they bend it. This is when you start putting a wild animal into a corner. But all these marks are from their horns.
How many new bison are born each year, would you say?
How many are born, or how many should be born, or how many do we want to be born? Those are 3 distinct different things. Okay.
All 3 of those questions are good.
Minimum number we should have had 20 this year. We had 14. Okay. Could have had as many as 25 or 30. Bison will breed when they're 2. But if they breed when they're 2, they probably won't breed when they're 3. So that's why the 20 are all animals over 3 years old. They should have been bred.
What goes into to them not breeding?
Who knows? Whether it's the bull's fault or their fault, or just no bull was available when they came into season. It's hard to say. And some are just, I guess, low fertility. I have one that we're going to make into a jerky because, see, there's your bagpiper. A farm that prevents her from going to a funeral. She plays at all the veteran funerals.
That's awesome, man. Do you think the bison like the bagpipes?
You have to ask her. I think they run.
Let's try that again.
Cindy?
Hey, thank you.
Cindy?
We have a bagpiper at the Bison Farm. I play the pipes at Stone County Honor Guard, and we do veteran funerals and stuff.
That was great. I really appreciate you playing for it.
Few mistakes that nobody hears, but that's okay. You got a lot of different people here. I think because we have the privacy.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't blame
I
anybody
mean,
for
when
wanting
I
that.
was first practicing the bagpipes, I don't think the neighbors would have appreciated it. When you could play maybe one song, if you could get through one song, right?
Do you think that the bison like the bagpipes?
No, they don't. Nor do my horses. Usually, if I go out and play the bagpipes, they run in the opposite direction. So, no, they're not Scotch-Irish bison.
That's why they use the bagpipes in war, to scare the enemy away, okay?
Freak out the horses.
That's right. That's right. They're getting a little more used to it.
When did you take up the bagpipes?
God, I was working at a bank, so probably about 6 years ago. Longer than that? You'd think I'd be a lot better. But I would say maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Lyons College has some of the best bagpipers in the United States. That's in, thank you, Batesville. And they will teach you. I was not one of their favorites. You'd go to the lessons and the head of the group would go, Cindy, give me a double E. And it's a ba-ba-ba. I said, yeah, sure. Just show me. Can you show it to me once? Ba-ba-ba. So maybe one more time, Jimmy. But anyway, they put up with me and taught me, and they got me some bagpipes, so we're all set.
Why the bagpipes?
Because I've always loved them. And look, can you find a better place to play them? You go up on the hill, or you walk this. It's made for the bagpipes as far as I'm concerned. Sometimes I think, I'll be playing it on my porch and I'll think, there's so many Scotch-Irish that lived here. They're probably all coming down to hear the pipes. And then one says, she sucks. And they all take off. She sucks.
So as someone from New York originally, did you ever see yourself being a bison farmer?
No. Horses, maybe cattle. Always had horses for a long time, but not a bison. It was him from Montana. When he was not from Montana, but when he was working there, we came out of a restaurant, and off to the side is this wild bison just eating grass. And he says, "Why not bison?" I said, "Oh, I don't know." Before you know it, why don't we get all bison? So it is kind of neat and kind of sad that they don't roam the plains anymore. The only way they exist is farming. It's too bad. Okay, cut.
Okay. Yeah, I don't ever hear anything.
Enough.